Good evening, India, and good morning, America. Welcome to this one-of-a-kind international webinar at Believers Church Medical College and Hospital, Kerala, India. Today, we have a distinguished guest, a low carbohydrate advocate and a leader of the organization, founder and CEO of Low Carb USA. The original organization was founded in the beginning of 2016 with the initial intention of providing a platform through an annual conference for internationally renowned scientists and medical practitioners to present the ever-increasing evidence on the benefits of reducing carbohydrates in the diet. Doug Reynolds felt that education about the power of the low-carb or ketogenic diet for the individual who may not get the information from their medical team or from their mainstream nutrition advice, and for practitioners who might be able to prescribe it in their practice, was critical. However, his mission quickly evolved when he realized how important this was to the medical professional community. Valuable tools are needed, not only to provide hope to their patients to reverse and prevent disease, but restore hope and to the very practitioner who is advocating this. This is why they went to medical school and got professional training to help people heal and not just put band-aids and never address the root cause of the problem. The tools and resources Low Carb USA has been providing not only includes live conferences, but also a huge library of educational videos, a growing database of various resources. Most importantly, Doug has coordinated the establishment of a panel of advisors to oversee the creation and maintenance of a set of clinical guidelines for therapeutic carbohydrate restriction, which was first published in May 2019. He has worked tirelessly over this period during COVID-19 outbreak as well to establish this non-profit Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. And this organization will now house most of the above body of work as education and training of metabolic health practitioners and the entire community interested in making a difference in worldwide metabolic health. His aim is to stall and reverse the increasing prevalence of non-communicable lifestyle-related diseases influenced by metabolic dysfunction and insulin resistance. Accreditation pathways have been established for practitioners within this society to introduce the credibility to the practice of therapeutic carbohydrate restriction and to help establish alternative standard of care for those whose metabolisms are different because they don't eat excessive carbohydrates. So this is a whole new world and a whole new realm which Doug is just going to unfold before us. So it's really exciting and it's a great privilege to have this stalwart before us. Welcome to this webinar, dear Mr. Doug Reynolds, founder and CEO of Low Carb USA.
Thank you very much, Jacob. It's an honor to have been invited to come and address you people. I'm very excited about this. You know, the main thing, like when we started Low Carb USA, was I couldn't understand how I was 51 years old, excuse me, how I was 51 years old and I had never heard about this before. And so we wanted to provide a mechanism to try and educate other people like me who hadn't heard about it. And it went on from there. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and but in reality, we're actually in the middle of a much greater and much more far-reaching pandemic than the current COVID one. And let me just get this thing started here. Is that working? I don't think it is. Let me share first. There we go. Okay, is that showing up?
You just have to make it as a slideshow.
Yeah, I've made it a slideshow. It says I'm sharing my screen. So
It is showing up.
is it showing up?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So the title of my talk here is carbohydrate reduction as a therapeutic intervention, which well, I'll get to a little bit later. But we're talking about this pandemic, and that's really chronic disease throughout the world. This is like a graph showing the levels of obesity and type 2 diabetes, in fact, specifically here. The orange one is back in 2000, and the purple one is a predicted one for 2030. And you'll notice here that
Doug, I'm sorry. Doug, I'm sorry. The graph is not showing up. It's still the first page, which is reflecting to me. That is the title of the presentation. The second graph is not showing up.
Exactly.
Okay, it's showing up for me, so that's a shame.
The slideshow has not yet come.
So Jacob, the slideshow has been shown to me on my screen, but
Yeah,
it's just the title of it, not
Correct.
the second. Yeah.
Okay, this is unfortunate.
Can we just unshare and again share? Can we try that?
Okay, let's try that. Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
Yeah, now we got it.
Okay, so can you see the writing underneath, or do you?
We can see the whole thing.
The whole.
We can see the.
Okay,
graph.
I'm just gonna when I try and actually go into the slideshow, it doesn't seem to work. So I'm just gonna leave it like this. Hopefully that'll be okay.
That's okay. That's perfectly all right.
You know, so what you'll notice here is that the biggest increases over the next 10 years are looking to be in India and the Middle East and Southeast Asia, which obviously, you know, is your community. And the thing with this is that it's there seems to be a lot of belief that obesity causes a lot of these chronic diseases, and that's not all. The science that we're seeing now is not showing that. What it's showing is that it's the underlying metabolic diseases and conditions that are actually resulting in obesity. So it's like obesity is a side effect, and the minute you start adjusting your lifestyle and what you eat, those metabolic conditions start reversing, and with it, the subsequent obesity starts to normalize as well. So that's actually a very interesting piece of it. And what we'll notice here is that it's not just obesity and it's not just type 2 diabetes. There are so many metabolic diseases that plague our world that we are starting to understand and see more and more are affected by excessive carbohydrate, chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption. And so, you know, we're looking at cardiovascular disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, Alzheimer's and dementia, a whole lot of different mental disorders. More and more data and information is coming out about that. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is another example. And there's just so many more. I was just talking to someone yesterday and saying like, oh, it's almost every day that we hear about another condition or another thing that is affected by or influenced or improved or prevented by reducing the amount of carbohydrates in our diet or taking on what we call often a ketogenic diet. One of the speakers, in fact, Amy Berger, at our previous conference in August, she was saying like, hey, like we sound like kooks, you know, because every time somebody says there's something wrong with them, we say, have you tried keto? You know, have you tried low carb? Because it just has an effect and an influence on so many things in our lives that it's often worth just trying, no matter what's wrong with you, to see if it might help. So what we did was that I found out about this when I was 50 years old. It helped improve a lot of issues in my life, including the fact that I was putting on weight and couldn't lose it anymore, in spite of the fact that I was running, marathon type distances and stuff like that. And so we decided to start Low Carb USA with the idea initially of just putting on a conference to provide the doctors and the scientists that were involved in this with this concept, to give them a platform to be able to present this to other people so that they could learn about it as well. And we did that, but it quickly grew from there. And we were invited to come and do one on the West Coast, which we did 6 months later in the January. This was back in 2016. So in January 2017, we did one in West Palm Beach. By this time now, we've done, I think, 15 different conferences, including one in Indonesia, in Jakarta, and which was a huge privilege and very exciting for us. But out of that, what we also just worked out was that we needed to provide more resources and try and build a community around and provide support for the people that wanted to try this, because it goes against the grain of what everybody's been taught, especially doctors and dietitians. And so it's very important to have a place where people can come and feel safe and talk about this without feeling like they're being attacked. And so we started to build in what we called a provider database for people to be able to look up and try and find a doctor in their area that would help, that's open to this and would help to support them. We had a database of a database of papers and articles and stuff, of like really digging deep into the science. If people are interested in looking at the actual scientific evidence behind this, then there's a huge database of information there. And one of the things that we really wanted to do, I think, let me just bring this up quickly. So I got introduced to Dr. Adele Haidt back in 2018, and her big vision was to create a set of clinical guidelines for doctors who wanted to introduce this as, so basically the title of these clinical guidelines is Carbohydrate Reduction as a Therapeutic Intervention. So for doctors and practitioners who wanted to incorporate this into their practice as an option to offer to their patients. And it's something that the doctors are not taught about, and especially the dietitians are not taught about during their training. The doctors get maybe, half an hour or a couple of hours of nutrition training in their whole 5, 6, 7 years or whatever of training. And so if they learn about it and they know about it, it's because they've learned about it themselves, So these guidelines are a mechanism to provide them, these doctors who have never been taught this stuff, gives them guidance on how to implement this in their practice. And Adele did an absolutely fantastic job of putting this together. We put a board of advisors together. It was about 15 prominent scientists and doctors from around the world. And as you get to learn more about this space, you'll learn, people like Professor Tim Noakes and Dr. Gary Fettke and Dr. David Unwin and Dr. Sin Malhotra, and those are like iconic names in this space. And they're all on our board. And Adele basically wrote these guidelines and then bounced it off this panel until everybody was happy that, yes, this is at a place where we can publish it. And so we published it in 2019, in May 2019. And we created a professional environment on Low Carb USA for doctors and that to be a part of, because we realized that they needed to have an organization where they could come together and talk about their issues and stuff. But it never really took off. And we talked about it with a whole lot of other people, doctors and scientists involved in this, and try to understand why it wasn't really working on Low Carb USA. And what we came up with was the fact that what we needed was a real legitimate non-profit organization that specifically was a home for practitioners who were open to this concept of carbohydrate reduction as an intervention. And so we started at the beginning of this year, and we literally just launched it about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, was the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, or the SMHP. And now our guidelines and our, so let's just go over here. So this is what the homepage looks like. If you go to metabolicpractitioners.org, you can find this website there, and you'll see, if you go through the menus at the top there, this is the provider database that is so much better than the one that we had on Low Carb USA. You can enter in a doctor's name, a zip code or postal code, a city, country, and find the practitioners that may be available to you in that area, specific area. I think there are very, very few in India, and but there's a way here. If you see, become a practitioner today, if you click on that button, you can go and enter your information. So I would really encourage all the doctors and the students and everybody to start putting their information in here once they learn about this stuff, so that other people who try to learn about it but would like the support or understanding or guidance from a doctor will actually be able to find someone on this list. So that's a great hope of ours as well. This is the clinical guidelines that have migrated over here as well from Low Carb USA that Adele basically wrote with the help of this panel. It's a phenomenal document and amazingly useful. And down the side, there's a whole list that's been translated now into about 8 or 9 different languages. And on the right-hand side, you'll see you can actually go and click on whatever language you're looking for and download a PDF.
Hello?
So people sorry?
Doug, your screen is not being shown. This is Jaideep here.
Okay, I'm not sure.
It's still on the presentation too, the second page, the graph.
Okay,
it's not moved.
Let me stop sharing and share again. This is a shame. Okay, so what I can do is I can send you
So this is Mom and Paul.
Yeah.
So can I ask? I will get you a remote access. I'll ask for a remote access, and can you share the slide once more?
Okay. Does that work better?
Then I have requested you a remote control access. So I will just try to access it from here, your computer.
Okay. Approved.
Did you get?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so down at the bottom there's the arrows. Yeah, try that. So click through to slide 8.
So one more second, I will just correct it right now. So can you just change the slide right now?
Okay. How about that?
Sir, I am requesting for the remote control access once again.
Okay.
So are you able to change the slides? Can you check now?
I'm not actually, if I go down the bottom here. Yeah, so it seems to be able to swap for me. Is that working now for
Yes,
everyone else?
it's working. It's changing. It's changing. So it's okay.
Okay. So, I mean, have you basically not seen any of the slides right from the beginning?
We have just seen the first 2 slides, Doc. So probably you can quickly skim through those slides so that we can see.
Okay, I'll do that. So so this is Low Carb USA's homepage. This is actually a picture from our event, I think in San Diego in 2017. Lowcarbusa.org if you want to go and check that out, see all the resources and everything and the different conferences, and you can sign up as the best part is to sign up as a premium member there, and then you get access to all the videos from all our, like there's probably about 13 different conferences there that we have videos for. Now my buttons disappeared at the bottom here there we go, there's one. So this is the homepage for the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, which is metabolicpractitioners.org. This is the provider list I was talking about. And if you see here, it says become a listed provider. So any of the doctors in India who are listening about this, who buy into this conversation, who learn about it and understand it and are happy to help their patients with it, we would really encourage them to add their information in here so that people looking for help from a doctor to do this will be able to find it here, because I think we're finding that is one of the biggest problems here, is that people are learning about it and they're hearing about all the amazing success stories, but their doctors are telling them that it's going to kill them and that they need to stop doing it right away. And to find support from a doctor who actually understands it and knows about the therapeutic benefits is difficult. And so this list of providers is really important for that. If I go down, this was Adele Height I was talking about, Dr. Adele Height, who really was the main mover behind the clinical guidelines that we have provided. These are the clinical guidelines. This is what it looks like on the site. You're able to scroll through this thing. It's a fantastic document. And on the right-hand side here, with these blue buttons, you'll see there's about 9 different languages, including English, where you can download a PDF version. And we're feeling like this has been really useful, where people are actually downloading this and taking it to their doctor and saying, you need to read this because this is helping me. I need help adjusting my medications or whatever it is. Because what happens here is that your metabolism changes so fast that if you are on medications that are metformin, for instance, or insulin or whatever, if you don't titrate those medications really quickly, along with your metabolic changes from reducing carbohydrates in your diet, that can be very dangerous. And so it's important that you have a doctor that understands this, who can help you reduce your medications. And eventually what we're finding is that very, very quickly, most people are getting off all their medications within a very short time. It's pretty incredible. So that's where you can find the clinical guidelines if you wanted to look at that. I hadn't got to this yet, but the next thing that we've introduced in the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, the SMHP, is this concept of credentialing and accreditation. So we've basically created a number of different pathways. The one you can see here is the training pathway, but there are a number of different, there's a clinical practice pathway, and there's one for scientific research for people that have done a lot of work in this industry. Basically, there are ways now defined for them to qualify for accreditation, and this is out of date because that badge there should actually be orange. We changed it to orange so that it stands out even more. But one of the more important things is that the people that are accredited are able to use the credentials MHP behind their name. And so basically what it's doing is certifying that this person is qualified enormously to guide and help people and treat people using this intervention as a therapeutic intervention. That's very exciting for us. We've already got a number of people that are going down these different pathways. 2 or 3 or have already been accredited at this point, and we've only been, we've only been established effectively for like 2 weeks. So the people are really excited about this because it gives them credibility, which is very important. Okay, so just to get to the practical part, we've only got half an hour here, so it's really difficult to get into any real technical details. So what I wanted to do is just give you an overview of the concept.
Doug,
make you understand. Yes.
Doug, you can take your time. Don't worry about the time. Okay.
Okay. Well, but the thing is, this is what I planned for this. So this is, I haven't gone into any more detail. What I'm hoping is that through those 2 websites, if you go to Low Carb USA or the SMHP, the resources there, that if you go and look for there's hundreds and hundreds of scientific papers. There's so much information. There are videos on even a bunch of free videos on the Low Carb USA site. If you go under the videos tab, there's so much information there that can teach people. Dr. Robert Sivas, it's called Diabetes Understood. I did a series on YouTube with him of 13, I think it's up to 15 videos now, that are all at least an hour and a half long with the most incredible information. So there's so much information that to try and cover it in even an hour here is really not possible. One of the guys that's on our panel of advisors for the clinical guidelines is a guy called Dr. David Unwin, who is a practicing GP in the United Kingdom, who got converted literally by one of his patients a few years ago, who decided to do this all on her own, came back, reversed her diabetes, lost a ton of weight, came back into his practice and literally yelled at him, saying, "How is it that you couldn't tell me that starch is effectively just sugar in my body? And you as a doctor should have known that, and you should have been able to advise me on this." And I had to find it out for myself and go and basically implement this myself without your help. And he was devastated to hear that. And so he went and he started to learn about it. He'd never even heard about low carb or ketogenic diet or anything at that stage. And so he went and he researched it, and he basically realized that in fact, he was so depressed back in 2012. He was so depressed that he was never able to help any of his patients, that he was literally on the verge of retiring and giving up medicine because he just couldn't help anybody. And then he learned about this, and now his whole life has turned upside down. And he and his wife have created an online program that's already helped, I think, 465,000 people in the UK now. And one of the things that he created was this chart to help people understand the concept of these foods containing carbohydrates and what they basically turn to in terms of sugar and glucose in the bloodstream when you actually consume them. And, you know, right at the top of the list here, which I found, I was literally talking to him yesterday about this. I was doing a podcast interview with him, and I told him, like, this is really interesting. I'm doing, you know, a talk with an Indian community tomorrow, and literally we're looking, and right at the top of his list here is rice. And what I really wanted to point out with this is that, yes, rice is got a huge amount of carbohydrates in it that effectively turn to sugar in your bloodstream, which is what we're trying to reduce. We're trying to reduce the glucose in your bloodstream, and as a result of that, reduce the insulin in your bloodstream, and that is actually the critical thing. It's keeping your insulin down and reducing the roller coaster, the insulin roller coaster, and the corresponding blood glucose roller coaster. That is what helps rectify all of these metabolic issues. And so I think it's very important. It's what occurred to me when I was thinking about this talk was that, you know, it's very easy for me to say, oh yeah, just stop eating carbohydrates. But for a community that is dependent almost wholeheartedly on something like rice or some other carbohydrate-based thing like naan or whatever, that, you know, they're going to say to me, so what do I eat? Because this is, I know there's a huge population of people in India that eat almost predominantly just rice. So, you know, you can't just tell them to stop eating rice. So what do you do? And this is why I asked to have my co-presenter here, who's become a great friend of mine. He lives in India, and he came to our very first conference in 2016. And he is teaching people in India how to do this in India. So he understands the culture, he understands the way you guys eat. And so he's able to help with that. And he has an amazing, phenomenal personal story. And so really what I wanted to do, I don't think I've got much else here. Just quickly, I was invited to be part of a movie that was made, actually came out last year, called Fat Fiction. It's available on Amazon. I'm not sure if you can get it in India. I think you might. I hope you can. But anyway, if you can find it, a copy of it, it's called Fat Fiction. And yeah, I've got a little part in it, but it really focuses on some icons in this space as well, who have, this is a very educational thing for people to learn about. It's often very good to give to people who haven't heard about it, or who are critical of it, or are dubious about it. This really helps to highlight the importance of this intervention. And yeah, I mean, that's really the end of it for me. Jaideep, I think we need to let Jaideep take over here. He can tell you his personal story quickly, and then talk about how this can be done practically in your country, because I think that's the most important thing. If it's not implementable in your environment, then it's pointless me even talking here. So we have to be able to teach you how to do this in your environment, in your country. So Jaideep, I think you should take over from here.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you so much. And before we hand over to our next panelists, our panelist is Mr. Jaideep Bhuta. He's based out of Mumbai, and he has been a health coach, and ever since he started off his weight loss journey, he has trained more than 200 people, and cumulatively 2,000, I guess, and cumulatively he has helped people lose more than 20,000 kilograms, is what he says. And he's an international speaker on advocating low carbohydrate for better health, and he's a celebrity trainer and whatnot. So it's a great privilege to have him as part of our panel, and let me welcome him to this international webinar so that he can share his perspective and take it forward. Over to you, Jaydeep. Can you please unmute yourself, Jaydeep?
Let me mute myself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Jacob, for giving me a chance to speak here. And Doug, thank you for the presentation. I'm going to take a note, your copy of a presentation from you, maybe on WhatsApp. So I'm going to tell you my story first, how I got introduced to low carb lifestyle. I was weighing 145 kilograms. That's in the year 2015. And I have tried everything to lose that weight, and I was a pre-diabetic, and nothing really worked when I was trying to follow the conventional low calorie guidelines of eating less and moving more, and which still had the primary foods coming from carbohydrates. So that really did not work. The fat loss was not happening, or maybe even if it was very slow. The moment I actually educated myself in the field of low carbohydrate, I realized that the primary issue of connecting the metabolic syndromes was taken care of, and I realized that I lost close to 67 kilograms in slightly more than a year. So even my A1Cs, my HbA1c, which had shot up to 6.5, it reached down to 4.9 or close to 5. So that's something which I saw, and it really, really, really worked for me. And having lost all that excessive weight. And since then, I've been practicing, I've been helping people, I've been educating a lot of people in Mumbai, in Bombay, for the benefits of following a low carbohydrate lifestyle. So currently, Jacob, if I may, I'm on a small experiment since the last 6 months of what happens if I start eating starch, that is carbohydrates again. And this experiment is again documented. I'm making a 45-minute documentary movie on myself. And since last 6 to 8 months, I have been eating only starch, and again following the strict guidelines of following eating less of fats and having more of starchy foods. That's what I've been following, having even maintaining slight calorie deficit. And in the last 8 months, I have gained close to 20 to 25 kilos. Now, this presentation or this documentary is being made only for people to understand that when somebody is cursed metabolically, or when somebody cannot, handle starches correctly, cannot handle carbohydrates correctly. For example, me, this is what happens. You start gaining weight again, and my sugars are slightly going up again. So this is just for me to document, and this documentary movie is going to be for the another half an hour where I start losing my weight again. Hello, Jacob, can you hear me?
Yeah. You're very much heard. No, right now you're muted. Right now you're muted.
Yeah. So I'm making this documentary movie just to show that what happens when you start eating carbohydrates and versus what happens when you stop them. So I have a lot of questions coming from people from India that, what are the things that do we get to eat on a low carbohydrate lifestyle? And unfortunately, what I have observed in my last 4 years of practice is that we Indians are extremely dependent on carbohydrates. The primary reason being that I think the only thing which we eat, as per our cultural addictions, is only carbohydrates. For example, in South, people are addicted to eating rice or things made of rice, and where in North, people are really addicted to having wheat as their primary source of carbohydrate. And the majority of my energy is something, is to explain people that the importance of protein and the importance of fat and the importance of reduction in carbohydrate. So that's what I've been doing since the last 4 years. I've been educating people, especially Indians, of how to eliminate carbohydrates and how to design a diet which is low in carbohydrate, at the same time which is very close to the things that we eat in our normal lifestyle. And over and above, the things that I have a list of things which I would like to send it to you, Jacob, of the things that you can eat and still, maintain a low carbohydrate lifestyle. And I am a vegetarian, born vegetarian, so I don't even have the correct mediums of protein in my diet. So still my carbohydrate intake is slightly higher compared to somebody who can really follow a low carb lifestyle who is a non-vegetarian person. So this is my story. I can help people understand. I can tell people that perfect sources of protein for an Indian sitting would be, you should have close to 100 to 120 grams of meat. This is on an average, which there's no fixed rule for everyone, but close to 100 to 120 grams of protein is something which I recommend to my clients here. And even the fat intake per person, I usually recommend to keep between 100 150 grams. And carbohydrate intake for a vegetarian person back in India is close to 25 grams or below 25 grams. And if a person is non-vegetarian, then the person can go easily under 10 grams, where genuinely the actual benefits will start showing. One more thing which I would like to say is that people, especially doctors and other people in India, they still, define sugar as to be something sweet, wherein the reality is that sugar need not be sweet. We have to educate people wherein sugar could be even starch, which is not sweet. So the moment if we can educate people around the whole doctor community that sugar, when you say, sugar is bad for diabetics, you should rather talk in detail that what is sugar. So sugar is something which is made of a monosaccharide. Understand what a mono, you understand what food there and how much starch and how much sugar are there inside. The moment we educate on that, we can maintain a carbohydrate deficit of under 25 grams and savings, and at the same time reap the benefit lifestyle. So what I've usually seen amongst my clients when people come to me, as Doug said, that most of them come to me because probably they are diabetics, and or probably they have fatty liver, or probably for obesity. And I've seen one thing, that if just by correcting, your carbohydrate intake, just by reducing that, and in a very short period of time, you can see their fat loss happening. That's something which you can observe instantly. At the same time, we observe that within a month or 2 months' time, the A1Cs are dramatically reduced. And the metformin, or even in fact, even insulin, if they are injecting insulin, that can be stopped in the first few days or few weeks of being on this diet. Obviously, a diabetologist will have to supervise this diet for people who are on insulin injections. But when it comes to your blood sugar levels, you can see instant corrections, maybe a few days, maximum week, when you start following a low carbohydrate lifestyle. So that's my story, Jacob, and I'm sure that you may have a lot of questions. You can ask me a lot of questions with regards to what foods I give or what kind of issues I see Indians have, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much, Jaydeep, for that perspective, for the Indian perspective which you shared. And indeed, Doug, we really love the way you gave the clear-cut guidelines about what exactly to do, though you did not delve deep into the nitty-gritties of it. So yes, the floor is open to questions, and one of the questions which has come is, may I direct it to Doug. Um, you talk about carbohydrate restriction, but when it comes to an advanced diabetes, uh, it is scientifically proven that the pancreas is not secreting, it is not able to secrete adequate insulin. So how do we justify carbohydrate reduction alone in bringing the symptoms of diabetes down?
Okay, so really what you're referring to there is actually type 1 diabetes, where the pancreas is not able to produce any insulin. If you have severe type 2, then you can find that the pancreas is struggling to produce enough insulin. But what happens is that when you start reducing carbohydrates, you're reducing the need for insulin, right? So and what we're finding with type 1 diabetes, it doesn't it doesn't reverse type 1 diabetes. It can reverse type 2 diabetes, but it doesn't reverse type 1. But what it does do is help enormously with blood sugar control. So, and I've got a friend who started this a couple of years ago, type 1 diabetic, who was on 200 units of insulin a day. And he started this diet, and within a very short time, he's basically got it down to where he's taking 8 or 9 units of insulin a day to maintain and live an active lifestyle. So it doesn't reverse type 1 diabetes, but it can enormously help control the blood sugar levels and make life a lot easier. With type 2, that's why you need to have a doctor that oversees the medications, because in most cases, we find that within a very short time, people can get off their medications completely. But some people don't. Some people are different. Some people's pancreas may be damaged. And so they may need some insulin, like a type 1 who still needs to take some insulin. There may be a requirement for a little bit of insulin. I find that there's a lot of doctors who keep their patients on metformin for quite a while afterwards. It's a reduced amount, but still keep them on metformin for a while until things stabilize, and then they slowly titrate them off. It depends on the patient, but almost guaranteed that they will be able to reduce the amount of medications that they're taking, and in most cases eliminate them completely. Hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doug. And one more question is about the dangers of a ketogenic diet. What about the adverse effects? Because we do read about certain negative comments about the ketogenic diet. So what is your comment on this?
Ignore them. So really, there are denialists, and there are people that are aggressively anti the ketogenic diet, and you'll find, I don't want to go into the details here, but there's certain communities of people that are, and a lot of it is religiously based, in fact, and the anti-keto or the anti-low carb movement is like that. But if you really look at the genuine science, and on that website that I've talked about, there's enormous amount of science and papers and stuff that you can go and research, that you can go and look at. But none of it shows any adverse effects at all. And that's not to say that one outlier, one person is not going to have an adverse effect. There's always a possibility of that. Never say never, right? But for the most part, there are no adverse effects. But you obviously need to monitor just in case you are that one person. If you find that you're genuinely having some adverse effects, and start changing things up a bit, add a little bit more carbohydrates back in again or whatever, until you find that
Sweet
magic
spot.
level where you're seeing some benefits at least of reducing the carbohydrates, but you are not introducing some kind of adverse clinical condition, if you happen to be one of that small minority of people. The bottom line is that most of this, in fact, all of the information that talks about adverse effects of the ketogenic diet is rubbish science. And if you really look at it, any report that you can show me that talks about that, I can almost guaranteed show you an article somewhere where it has been totally debunked and shown up for, because basically what they do is they take some data and then they manipulate it, and they create a result that looks like it's dangerous, and it's actually not. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you.
So Jacob, I'd like to add a few points here. As Doug has said, somebody asked a question that, what about ketoacidosis? That's something which I just flashed on my screen. And what I'd like to say is, for anybody who's trying to experiment or go on a ketogenic lifestyle, the first thing what I would recommend everyone is that any type 1 diabetic here who's watching this webinar should be careful and should only do it under a supervision of a diabetologist or a doctor, is because they are the ones who are most likely to get or be in a state of ketoacidosis, is because if at all their pancreas aren't manufacturing any insulin, then in that case your ketone readings can go high, and it can go high to an acidic level. It's because it's this insulin itself, if somebody's body is manufacturing insulin, it's this insulin which also regulates and reduces your ketone readings. So if at all you are a type 2 diabetic, and if at all your pancreas are still functional, then in that case, ketoacidosis is not possible for people whose pancreas are still manufacturing sufficient quantity of insulin, is because it's this insulin which is going to reduce your blood ketone readings and will not let it spike to a acidic state. So that's something which I'd like to add.
Yeah, no, that's very important. That ketoacidosis really is virtually impossible if you're not a
Absolutely.
type 1 diabetic. If your pancreas is making any insulin at all, pretty much you'll never end up in ketoacidosis.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Thank you so much. And one more question is, if I may direct this to JD, what about the intermittent fasting? What about it? Because there's a lot of hue and cry around it these days, and they say it's very much beneficial for weight loss and for reversing metabolic syndrome, etc. So, what is your take on this, JD?
So you know what? It's intermittent fasting is a very beautiful process, and it is very, people have complicated this term intermittent fasting. So when one human stops eating food for a period of 14 hours or 15 hours or 16 hours or 17 hours, then the glycogen in your liver is going to start depleting. Now, it's glycogen is a fuel which is fueling your body when you are on carbohydrates, right? So glycogen is nothing but sugar. Whenever you're eating sugar or any starchy food, eventually the starchy food will be converted into glucose and eventually will be dumped inside your liver as glycogen. So whenever we stop eating for a period of 16 hours, your body gets a chance to empty this glycogen stores from your liver, or if not empty, reduce them substantially. That's when your insulin readings of your blood, your insulin, in the blood will even reduce. Now, that's something which is of interest to people who are looking at fat loss, is when you have a lot of insulin moving around in your blood, your body's environment is not to lose weight. It's because insulin, as you know, is an anabolic or a fat gain hormone. So for people who are looking at fat loss, and if at all they're going and doing intermittent fasting, if at all they're not eating sugars or any kind of food for a period of 14, 15, 16 hours, your insulin in your blood is going to go down. At the same time, it'll be followed with a rise of your glucagon, your fat loss hormone. At the same time, it's also very important to know that fat, your body fat is a alternative source of fuel, as in if at all your body has adequate amount of glycogen present or sugar present in your liver, your body would initially prefer to use this sugar as a source of energy. But if at all we are depleting your glycogen from your liver initially, then your body has no choice but to break down your body triglycerides, your body fat, as a source of fuel. And therefore, intermittent fasting or reverse fasting or not eating for a prolonged period of time will help you, help your body to go in a state of ketosis. Or even if not ketosis, it will still help your body to break down fats faster. But this suggestion is only recommended to people
Jaydeep, your connection is breaking.
so of carbohydrates for not now. Can you hear
Yeah,
me
yeah,
now?
yeah, yeah. You're audible.
you've just come back again.
What
Yeah.
was my last statement? If
You
the
you
one that you heard.
you spoke about the triglycerides being burnt.
Yeah, so if at all you're not eating for a prolonged period of time, your body, probably will break down fats faster because your glycogen stores have been, depleted or are almost depleted. But this suggestion is something which I only give to people who are going to eat correctly on a good lifestyle. Now, I will not advocate intermittent fasting to people who will end up eating, heavy loads of carbohydrate after the fasting period. So if at all you're not going to maintain a nice low carbohydrate lifestyle, and you're just going to eat extreme quantities of carbohydrates because of hunger, if at all you feel hungry, in that case I will say you rather do not try and do intermittent fasting. But if at all somebody is comfortable with not eating for a period of 14 or 16 hours, and after the fasting period if the person can again follow a low carbohydrate lifestyle, in that case IF is genuinely helpful, going to be helpful for prolonged, other benefits and faster fat loss. In fact, even HbA1c reduction.
Dr. Jason Fung is like the authority really on intermittent fasting and extended fasting as well. So if people look him up, Dr. Jason Fung, Fung, and one of the things he talks about is that you don't have to be on a ketogenic diet or a low carb diet to see some benefits from fasting, but it is way easier. And if you don't have these constant insulin spikes and troughs and everything, and you don't have the diving in your blood glucose levels, and that which causes this like crazy hunger and stuff like that. If you don't have that, then your life is just a whole lot easier, and so you can go. I often go a whole day without eating, without even thinking about it, because I'm already busy. And I get to 5 o'clock in the evening, I think, geez, I haven't even eaten anything. Better have some dinner, So if you're trying to do intermittent fasting and only eat in a small window of time each day, if you're not on a low carb diet, it's much easier to do that. And in fact, half the time you end up just doing it normally without even thinking about it. And but even if there are documented benefits to doing this. Extended fasting, going over 24 hours, there are some benefits on certain conditions, and you need to really look at Jason Fung's work to understand all of that. And I don't really go there, but anything up to 24 hours, basically eating once a day. My favorite guy, Dr. Robert Sivers, I talked about, he did a whole series of YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. And he says, yeah, this fancy new term, intermittent fasting, I just call it eating once a day. So that's there's huge benefits to that.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you so much. We have a special guest with us. She's our senior professor of medicine and an advocate for weight loss, exercise, and reduced carbohydrate intake. And she's been instrumental in treating a lot of patients with metabolic diseases, etc. She's an experienced and an amazing physician. So may I invite Dr. Anamani ma'am to probably unmute and share her perspective with us, if it's okay.
Please go ahead, Jacob. We'd love to have her.
Ma'am, can we hear your perspective, ma'am?
Shame.
Okay, probably she has some issues with the net. No problem. So if there are no more questions, I think
I've got something just quickly. If I'm going to try and share my screen here quickly again, because what I want to share with you guys is something that I was talking about Dr. David Unwin and his sugar table. He actually told me about this yesterday. Can you see that?
Yeah, low carb nutrition, is that the one?
Yes, yeah. So this is actually, so people can go there very easily. It's DLife, D-L-I-F-E, dlife.in. And this is a low carbohydrate thing specifically targeted to Indians that are vegetarians. And if you can see down here, it's 250 success stories. The most important thing I think is over 1,250 low carb recipes for Indians, right? So this is where a beautiful resource for people to be able to go and they think, oh, what must I eat if I'm not going to eat rice? And I think this will give you some amazing ideas. And then, if you go down here, look, the success stories are just incredible. All these people that have reversed their type 2 diabetes in India, on a low carb diet in India, within that culture. So I think this is going to be way useful to a lot of people in your community. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you. I think it will be indeed useful for people. And thank you so much for this session. It was 5 o'clock in the morning for you, Doug. So I think you are part of the 5 a.m. club. You're up and alert and ready to share with us. And you indeed gave us a sneak peek into what low carb life is and how do we go about it. And so thank you so much. So
I think that just quickly, that's exactly it. It's a sneak peek saying, look, there's something here. That's all I can really have time to do in this. There's so much information. So all I wanted to do is open people's eyes to say there's something here. And now the resources I gave you is just the tip of the iceberg. And I can promise you're going to go down a rabbit hole, and there's going to be so much information that you can come across. But start here. Start educating yourself and start learning about this, and you will live to reap the benefits later for sure.
Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you so much. And it's really commendable that you have taken this as your passion and you've converted it into an organization. And I hope that Low Carb USA really transforms millions of lives. So all the best with that. And Jaydeep, thanks for joining in too. Good to
Absolutely.
know you.
Can I also just say maybe Jaydeep can just, since he helps people in India to do this, maybe Jaydeep, you could just give people a quick way to get hold of you so that if they need your help, maybe you can help them too.
Jacob, you can actually connect with me on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. My mobile number is something which I will even tell you that. At the same time, I'm going to give you some tips on how to follow a low carbohydrate lifestyle, in the simplest manner. I would say that, one should not be initially, if you're trying to follow low carbohydrate, just remove all the grains. The first thing that you guys need to remove is rice. Stick to eating vegetables, probably more higher portions of meat, and do not pay more emphasis on calories initially. Is because if you try to go down detail of counting calories, you may find it very difficult. So just even if you kind of just remove the rice component of it and switch over to having more of meat, or in fact even paneer and cheese, our Indian paneer is a great source of protein, and at the same time it's extremely low in carbohydrate, which can even help you fill you up. At the same time, if at all if you want to experiment making cauliflower rice at home, that's something which is a good substitute of for your rice. And the curries and the South Indian curries, and at the same time idlis, can also be made using paneer. I know it sounds very funny, but actually I give recipes to people how to make idlis with paneer. It's not going to taste the same, but it's very close. And stick to eating leafy green vegetables, stick to eating more of meats initially. Do not make a mistake of counting calories in the initial days of low carbohydrate lifestyle. And if you want any more details with regards to what food items to eat, I can obviously email them to you, or you can even connect with me on my phone number or through my website.
Thank you, Jaydeep. I think viewers have noted that, and definitely I would like to be the conduit to connect them with you, whoever is interested. Um, yeah, so I think this particular webinar, as I said, it is a one of a kind. I mean, most of our sessions, all of our sessions have been core scientific sessions so far. So this one was a little leaf out of a different book. So I think it will make people think and probably test out the waters of low carbohydrate diet. So with that, thank you so much, Doug. Metabolic diseases, as you said, is a rising pandemic, and I guess we are in the midst of that pandemic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we are already in the middle of that pandemic with a lot of cardiac diseases and whatnot due to this metabolic syndrome. So yes, so if low carb is going to really help, I think people have to give it a try, and especially our medical students and doctors currently listening to this, I think will give a serious ear to this and look into it. So
Yeah. You know, even if we're not, they don't. You might find some of them will become only low carb advocates, but we ask that the doctors at least understand enough about it that they can include it as an option in their therapeutic tool bag. You know, and especially if a patient comes to you and says, "I want to do low carb diet. I heard about it." You don't say, "No, it's going to kill you." That you help them, and especially if they're on medications, you need to help them to reduce those medications properly so that they don't actually end up in trouble. That's really important.
thank you, Doug. Thank you for that perspective. And so we are coming to an end of this webinar, and special thanks to all the participants over here. We have participants from different age groups. We have practicing physicians and surgeons. We've got students attending, medical students attending. And thank you so much, everybody. And I hope this session was an eye-opener for all of you. Special thanks to both Doug and Jaydeep for coming over and doing this session for us, especially Jaydeep. Wish you a speedy recovery. We know that you're a little
Thank you so
unwell.
much.
Yeah, so wish you a speedy
Thank you.
recovery. And
Thank you.
And to everybody, I hope that you try and enter this rabbit hole, which Doug just spoke of, and unravel the mysteries of or rather the benefits of low carb diet. So on that note, on that promising and hopeful note, we end this webinar, wishing you all a blessed and very happy weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.